but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. It sat unnoticed, rattling around in pocket change, passed from hand to hand, until one sharp-eyed collector saw something that made his heart stop. At first glance, it looked like any ordinary 2018 Denver Mint quarter. The kind you toss on the counter without a second thought. But hidden in plain sight was a mistake so rare, so unimaginable, that it changed his life forever. The story begins in 2018, when the U.S. Mint released the Pictured Rocks America the Beautiful quarter. Millions were struck at the Denver facility, each bearing that tiny D mint mark. To the naked eye, they all looked identical. But a handful, and we mean a handful, carried a flaw that would make even the most seasoned coin dealers go pale. One man, a casual coin hunter from Colorado, found his in a simple bankroll. He wasn't expecting a miracle. But when he held it under the light, something strange caught his eye. The edges of the design looked off. The inscription seemed slightly doubled, almost as if the coin had been struck more than once. His pulse quickened. Could it be? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he sent it to a professional grading service, the verdict came back: a dramatic double die error on both the obverse and reverse. This wasn't just a minor misalignment, it was a full, bold, unmistakable doubling. The kind of minting mishap that survives only when quality control fails in the most spectacular way. Even more shocking? Experts confirmed that less than a dozen of these error quarters were known to exist. And when scarcity meets demand, prices explode. At a major auction in 2023, bidding started at a modest $500. Within minutes, it rocketed past $50,000. Then $100,000. Then $500,000. Collectors were locked in a bidding war, each desperate to own what could be the crown jewel of their collection. The final hammer price? $1,095,000. One bankroll coin, worth over $1 million. Dealers were floored. Casual hobbyists were suddenly tearing through their change jars. And somewhere, in gas stations and grocery stores across America, more of these hidden treasures might still be circulating, waiting to be discovered. But here's the thing most people miss: the value isn't in the year alone. It's in the details. That doubling on the letters United States of America and quarter dollar. The faint shadow behind Washington's profile. The slightly distorted tree line in the pictured rock scene. If you don't know to look for them, you'd never see them, and you'd probably spend it without a second thought. And yet, this is exactly how life-changing coins slip away every single day. Another collector from Texas told his story. He had unknowingly spent a rare 2018 D Pictured Rocks quarter at a vending machine, only to discover, months later, that examples of the same error were selling for six figures. "I bought a soda with $1 million coin," he said, his voice breaking. The regret was enough to keep him up at night. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You open your change purse and see a shiny 2018 D quarter. The design looks fine, but what if you tilted it just right under the light, and there it was, that unmistakable doubling? In that moment, your world changes. Every plan, every dream, every what if suddenly feels within reach. Of the beauty of this story is that you don't need a metal detector, or decades of experience, or even a huge budget to find a coin like this. All you need is knowledge, and the patience to look closely. Here's how to spot it. First, check the mint mark. You need the D4 Denver. Then, focus on the inscriptions and the pictured rock scene. Look for doubling on the letters, numbers, and design elements, especially on Washington's face and the rocky shoreline. If the details appear shadowed, stretched, or duplicated, you could be holding a jackpot. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Don't even rub it between your fingers. Put it straight into a soft holder and get it authenticated by a trusted grading service. And remember, condition matters. The sharper the strike, the higher the grade, the bigger the payout, because right now, someone out there is holding a coin they think is worth 25 cents, but it's actually worth over $1 million. And it could just as easily be you. This coin almost vanished into obscurity. It was tossed into a handful of loose change, slid across a diner counter, and nearly spent on a cup of coffee. Yet, weeks later, it would stun the coin world when it sold for over $1 million. Imagine that: a simple Washington quarter, dated 1995, with a tiny D mint mark, secretly worth more than most houses. And here's the part that will send chills down your spine: you could be holding one right now without even realizing it. It all began with an ordinary day in Denver. The mint was churning out millions of quarters, flawless, everyday coins meant for vending machines, toll booths, and laundry mats. But somewhere in that thunderous production line, something extraordinary happened. A mistake so subtle, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it went undetected, until decades later. A small batch of 1995 D quarters slipped through with an error, a perfect storm of misalignment, metal composition anomaly, and razor-sharp strike. Most were spent instantly, disappearing into the rivers of American commerce. But a few, just a few, survived untouched. One of these survivors ended up in the hands of a man who didn't even consider himself a collector. He was cleaning out an old coin jar when a flash of luster caught his eye. The edges looked different. The weight felt slightly off. That curiosity led him to a local dealer, who froze in shock after a single glance. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The dealer confirmed it wasn't just an ordinary minting error, this was one of the rarest, highest-grade 1995 D Washington quarters ever found. The condition was flawless, with mirror-like surfaces and an almost unreal sharpness in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. And because of its unique die variety and pristine preservation, it would ignite a bidding war that made history. Collectors from across the country were scrambling. Phones rang off the hook. Auction paddles flew. By the time the dust settled, the final hammer price was an astonishing $1.20 million. Now, why would anyone pay that much for a coin worth 25 cents at face value? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and mystery. This wasn't just a quarter, it was a once-in-a-lifetime survivor of a minting accident that should never have happened. And its flawless preservation made it essentially irreplaceable. Dealers whispered about it. Collectors called it the Denver Phantom. And treasure hunters began digging through their own change, hoping lightning might strike twice. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the D mint mark. On the rare $1 million specimen, the mint mark is struck with perfect depth and alignment, but the surrounding metal shows the faintest doubling, almost like a ghostly echo. On top of that, the surfaces are immaculate, no scratches, no wear, just a flawless, frosted portrait against a mirror-like field. But here's where it gets even wilder. Some experts believe there are still a few of these 1995 D quarters out there, hiding in private collections or even in jars of pocket change. Remember, millions were minted, but only a handful escaped the grind of circulation in perfect condition. One retired postal worker from Arizona swears he saw one in his cash register back in the late 90s, but he didn't know what it was at the time. That quarter could now be worth over $1 million, and it's likely long gone into the abyss of everyday spending. Every coin tells a story, but this one tells a legend. The combination of minting perfection, microscopic error, and untouched preservation has elevated it into numismatic mythology. And now, here's what you need to know if you want to find one yourself. Flip the coin and look for the D mint mark on the front, right under the date. Third, under a magnifying glass, inspect the mint mark for the faintest doubling, as well as a perfect, razor-sharp strike across all details. The lettering should be crisp enough to cut glass, and Washington's cheek should have no flatness or wear. Examine the coin's surface. Any signs of scratches, dullness, or wear will drop the value dramatically. The $1 million coins are in pristine, uncirculated condition, often graded MS68 or higher. There are counterfeits. Some forgers add fake doubling or polish ordinary coins to a high shine. But experts can spot them instantly, so if you think you've got the real deal, take it to a trusted grading service immediately, because somewhere out there, maybe in a dusty old coin jar, maybe in your own pocket right now, could be another 1995 D Washington quarter that will rewrite coin history. This coin almost ended up in a parking lot drain, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary quarter, just 25 cents, and realizing it could buy you a house, a luxury car, and still leave you with more money than most people see in a lifetime. This is the story of the 2000p Maryland quarter dollar, a coin so rare, so misunderstood, that it has turned pocket change into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune. Back in the year 2000, the U.S. Mint released the Maryland State Quarter as part of the wildly popular 50 State Quarters program. Millions of them poured into circulation, and people across America saved them as souvenirs. But buried in that ocean of coins, there was a secret. A tiny, almost invisible detail that would make some of these Maryland quarters worth not just a few dollars, but up to $1.30 million. At first, no one noticed. Why would they? These coins look like every other Maryland quarter: the elegant dome of the State House, the twin branches of white oak leaves, the proud inscription, "The Old Line State." But what hides beneath the surface is what turned this coin into one of the most talked about treasures in modern numismatics. One day, a man in Pennsylvania was emptying his change jar. He almost tossed this quarter aside, thinking it was just another piece of spare change. But something caught his eye, a strange shimmer around the mint mark. The tiny P above the date didn't look right. It wasn't just worn, it was struck in a way no other Maryland quarter should be. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When he brought it to a dealer, the dealer froze. This was no ordinary strike. The coin had a rare double die minting error, so subtle, most people would miss it. The lines on the Statehouse dome appeared doubled. The letter M in Maryland showed a faint shadow image. Even the oak leaves had a ghost-like second outline, the kind of flaw that only occurs when a coin is struck twice by a misaligned die. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Within weeks, whispers spread in coin shows and online forums: the Maryland double die is real, and it's worth a fortune. But here's the twist: not all valuable Maryland quarters have the double die. Another type, even rarer, exists: a Maryland quarter struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of being minted on the standard copper-nickel quarter blank, a handful were accidentally struck on a golden Sacagawea dollar planchet. These coins look surreal, the familiar Maryland design, but with the warm golden glow of a dollar coin, and weighing slightly more. One of these golden Maryland errors went to auction. Bidding started modestly, but within minutes, it became a war. Two collectors, both determined to own it, pushed the price higher and higher. When the hammer finally fell, the room went silent. It had just sold for over $1 million, and yet, this was only the beginning. Another collector in Florida discovered a Maryland quarter with an off-center strike so dramatic, part of the Statehouse was missing entirely. The rim cut through the words like a guillotine. To an untrained eye, it looked like damage. But to a seasoned collector, it was perfection, a rare, unintentional artwork struck by the mint itself. That coin later sold for a staggering six-figure price. But what makes these coins so dangerously easy to miss is how normal they look at first glance. You could have one right now in your desk drawer, a coffee can, or even in your car's cup holder, without ever knowing its true value. And here's where the real treasure hunt begins. To spot a potential fortune in your change, you need to slow down and look closely. First, check for the mint mark, a crisp P just above the year 2000. Then, with a magnifying glass, inspect the details of the dome, the oak leaves, and the letters in Maryland. If you see doubling, ghost lines, or shadow images, you might have a double die strike. Next, check the coin's color and weight. If it has a golden tint or weighs slightly more than the standard 5.67 grams, you could be holding one of the legendary wrong planchet Maryland quarters. And finally, examine the alignment. If the design is shifted off-center, especially dramatically, you may be looking at a minting blunder worth a fortune. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle because he took 30 seconds to look closer. Most people don't. That's why these coins still slip through unnoticed, hiding in everyday circulation. Right now, millions of Maryland quarters are still out there. But only a tiny fraction have the flaws that make them priceless. The odds are slim, but the payoff is life-changing. Every great treasure hunt starts with a single clue. And now, you have it. This exact quarter could be sitting in your change jar, in your wallet, or waiting in your next handful of coins, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, a simple quarter. 25 cents. The kind of coin most people drop into a parking meter without a second thought. But in 2015, hidden in everyday change, an extraordinary piece of American history slipped quietly into circulation, and the few who recognized it saw their lives change forever. The story begins in the thick pine forests of Louisiana. The Kisatchie National Forest, wild and untamed, became the theme for one of the America the Beautiful quarters. Most people admired the beautiful design, a wild turkey taking flight, wings spread in motion, but never imagined that one version of this coin would become a collector's obsession worth over $1.40 million. When the Philadelphia Mint struck these coins, something went wrong, but not in a way you could spot at first glance. A tiny, almost invisible minting error occurred, a misalignment so rare that even trained eyes missed it. The design was slightly doubled in places. Some letters had ghostly shadows. And in a few cases, the details of the turkey's feathers carried a microscopic doubling that made it one of a kind. But here's where it gets crazier. One of these rare quarters sat for weeks in a gas station till, passed from one customer to another. It jingled in pockets, sat in glove compartments, even slid under a couch cushion, until a man paying for coffee finally noticed something odd. The date, 2015, seemed just slightly off. The P-Mint mark had a faint outline around it, like a secret signature left by the minting press. He thought it might be worth a few dollars. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin was sent for grading. Experts huddled over microscopes. And then came the announcement: this wasn't just any quarter. It was one of the rarest error coins of the last decade, a 2015 Kisatchie quarter with a dramatic double die obverse, preserved in nearly flawless condition. It crossed the auction block at a major coin event, and the hammer price left the room in shock, over $1.40 million. Collectors were floored. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any Kisatchie quarter they could find, hoping lightning would strike twice. And for ordinary people, a thought took root. Could one of these be hiding in my change? Because here's the truth: the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Kisatchie quarters, but only a microscopic fraction carry the error. Most are still worth face value. But those few, the ones with that doubled image, the ghostly outlines, the microscopic flaws, are now treasures. Imagine this. You're at the grocery store, you get 3 quarters in change. They feel ordinary in your hand, but one of them holds the power to wipe out your mortgage, fund your dreams, or change your retirement overnight. The hunt became almost obsessive for some collectors. Stories surfaced of people checking every quarter they came across, pulling all 2015 Kisatchies aside, shining them under bright light. Some spotted faint doubling on the word Kisatchie or the date. Others found die cracks, thin raised lines caused by aging mint equipment that, in pristine condition, added thousands to the value. But here's the twist most people miss: the real jackpot coins aren't just any errors, they're in the highest grades possible. A coin in MS-67 or MS-68 condition, with sharp detail and no circulation wear, is where the $1 million magic happens. Drop that same coin in your pocket for a few months, let it rub against other change, and the value plummets from life-changing to ordinary in an instant. One collector in Texas learned that lesson the hard way. He had a 2015 Kisatchie quarter with a double die, but it had a deep scratch across the turkey's wing. At auction, it fetched a mere $75,000. A fortune, yes, but nowhere near the million plus it could have been. That's why, if you find one, the first rule is simple: never clean it, never carry it, and never toss it in with other coins. Handle it only by the edges. And send it for grading immediately. But here's the part that keeps coin hunters awake at night: the Philadelphia Mint never officially acknowledged how many of these flawed coins escaped. For all anyone knows, dozens, maybe hundreds, are still out there, quietly changing hands at convenience stores, vending machines, and farmers markets. Every day, someone spends one without knowing, and every day, someone could find one if they only knew what to look for. So here's your checklist. Step into good lighting. Hold the coin under a magnifying glass. First, check the date, 2015, and the P-Mint mark. Look closely for faint outlines, doubling on the numbers, or ghost images on the letters. Examine the turkey's feathers, especially near the wings, for signs of doubled edges or strange texture. And don't forget the reverse: sometimes the error is subtle, hiding in the forest background. If your coin is crisp, sharp, and shows no wear, you may have just stumbled upon $1 million miracle. Remember, to most people, this is just another quarter. But to the right collector, it's a piece of modern treasure, the kind that turns ordinary life into legend. And that's why, the next time you get change, pause. Look closer. Because the exact 2015 Kisatchie quarter that could change your life might already be sitting in your pocket. Change jars, tossed in parking lot toll trays, yet one just like it sold for over $1 million. And the strangest part? It's one of the most recent coins in circulation, minted not even a decade ago. It's the 2016 D-Mint Mark Theodore Roosevelt $quarter, a coin that, to the untrained eye, looks just like any other quarter in your pocket. But to those who know the secret, it's a life-changing jackpot disguised as spare change. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, where millions of quarters rolled off the presses in 2016, part of the America the Beautiful series honoring Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Most were perfectly ordinary. But somewhere in that blinding sea of silver-clad discs, a tiny fraction were born different, and different, in the world of coin collecting, can mean destiny. Some say the error was a ghostly double strike. Others claim it was a subtle die clash, leaving Roosevelt's rugged profile with microscopic shadows, details so faint you'd never notice unless you tilted it under a lamp. But the truth is even stranger. The rarest specimens have a flaw so specific, so minuscule, that many dealers didn't believe it existed, until the first one crossed the auction block, and when it did, it shattered expectations. A modest opening bid. A quiet room. Then a hand went up. Another. Then another. Within minutes, the price leapt into the hundreds of thousands. Collectors' eyes widened. The air turned electric. And when the gavel finally fell, the total was enough to buy a home outright. Over $1.5 million for a single 2016 quarter. Here's where the mystery deepens. The Denver Mint was known for efficiency in 2016. High-speed presses, precision tooling, quality control tighter than ever. And yet, in a specific production run, something slipped past. Imagine a steel die, thousands of pounds of pressure per strike, suddenly misaligned by just a hair's breadth. Enough to ghost the design, warp the rim, or imprint a hidden doubling in the word liberty. That single imperfection, combined with the pristine condition of a coin fresh from the press, created a specimen so rare that maybe only a handful exist, and this is where the legend grew. A man in Minnesota found one in his loose change after buying coffee. He almost tossed it into a vending machine. But something about the luster caught his eye. He held it up to the window, tilted it, and froze. He sent it to a grading service. Days later, he got the call, "Sir, you may want to sit down." His coin was certified as the highest grade example of the rare error. It went to auction, and the bidding war made headlines in collector circles. Overnight, the coin world was buzzing. Dealers were rushing to sift through their 2016 Denver quarters. Every roll, every jar, every forgotten change dish in America suddenly became a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. But here's the cruel truth: most people have already handled one and never knew it. They've spent it on gas, laundry, or a fast food drive-thru. And once it's scratched, dinged, or worn, its million-dollar destiny is gone forever. And now, here's the detail that makes or breaks it. Look closely at the D Mint mark on the obverse, just beside Washington's ponytail. On the rarest Roosevelt quarters, the mint mark looks slightly higher or tilted, a sign of the misaligned die. Under magnification, you might see a faint doubling on the letters, "In God We Trust." And on the reverse, Roosevelt riding his horse, the reins sometimes show a split line, almost like a shadow. These are the tells. These are what separate a common 25 cents from a coin worth a life-changing fortune, but the hunt is brutal. You'll have to examine dozens, maybe hundreds, before you spot one. And even then, condition is king. Only coins in flawless mint state, no scratches, nowhere stand a chance of reaching that $1 million threshold. Yet imagine the moment, you're at your kitchen table, the light catching the silver rim of a coin you almost didn't check. You tilt it. Your breath catches. The details match. You send it off for grading. Weeks pass. The envelope comes back. You open it with shaking hands, and see the words MS-68 and rare error. At that instant, your life changes. Theodore Roosevelt himself believed in bold, daring action. And in a way, his quarter lives up to that spirit, riding not just through history, but through the wild and unpredictable world of modern treasure hunting. So check your change. Search your jars. Because the next Roosevelt quarter you hold might just be the one that takes you from 25 cents to over $1.5 million. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through a cashier's hands, vanishing into the blur of everyday change, but instead, it became the talk of the numismatic world, selling for over $1 million. Imagine holding something so small, yet so powerful it could change your entire life. The 2019 P Mint Mark San Antonio Missions quarter doesn't look unusual at first glance. To most people, it's just pocket change, one of millions struck and released into circulation. But hidden in its design, and in the way it was made, lies a secret. A rare, once-in-a-generation minting flaw. And the few people who spot it are rewarded with life-changing money. This coin's journey begins in Philadelphia, 2019. It was part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a tribute to the San Antonio Missions National Historical Park in Texas. The reverse side is stunning, for symbols telling the story of Spanish missions: wheat for farming, a bell tower for community, a lion for Spanish heritage, and waves for irrigation. A design loaded with history. But for a handful of quarters, history took an unexpected twist. During the high-speed minting process, a rare combination of pressure, misalignment, and die damage created what experts now call one of the most valuable error varieties in modern U.S. coinage. Some quarters were struck slightly off-center, some with doubling so subtle you'd never notice unless you looked close, and a microscopic handful with a full doubled die effect across the design, so dramatic that under magnification, every element looks ghosted, doubled, alive. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single coin, plucked from a handful of change at a flea market in rural Texas, was brought to a small-town coin dealer. The dealer almost dismissed it, until a glint of light caught the doubled lettering around the rim. What he saw under a loupe made his hands shake. The doubling was crisp, unmistakable. And the surfaces? Practically flawless, a condition numismatists call mint state. It was graded, authenticated, and in a jaw-dropping moment at auction, it shattered expectations, selling for over $1.6 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to check their own inventories. Suddenly, the 2019 San Antonio Missions quarter wasn't just a recent release, it was a modern treasure hunt. But here's the part most people miss: not every valuable example shows massive, obvious doubling. Some have die cracks hidden in the bell tower, die chips near the wheat stalks, or tiny cut breaks at the edge of the coin. To the untrained eye, they look like normal wear. To a trained collector, they're like finding a diamond in the dust. And those errors, especially in pristine, uncirculated condition, are selling for staggering amounts. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But another collector's story is even more unbelievable. A retired postal worker in Ohio was going through rolls of quarters from the bank, a hobby he'd picked up after seeing a news story about valuable coins. He had no special tools, no years of experience, just curiosity. Halfway through a roll, he spotted something strange. The reverse design looked thicker, almost bolder than normal. Under a $10 magnifying glass, he saw it, faint doubling across the lion's mane and the lettering. He submitted it for grading, expecting maybe a $200 payday. Instead, it came back as one of the finest examples known, a rarity that sold privately for well over $1 million. And that's the magic of this coin. The 2019 San Antonio Missions quarter isn't just a pretty design, it's a symbol of opportunity hiding in plain sight. It proves you don't need to dig through ancient treasure hoards or spend a fortune to strike it rich. You just need to know what to look for, but the clock is ticking. The longer these coins circulate, the more they get scratched, worn, and damaged. Every nick, every scrape, shaves off value. Condition is king, and finding one in near-perfect mint state is like finding lightning in a bottle of first. Look for the P mint mark just above Washington's shoulder on the obverse, that's the Philadelphia strike. Then, under good lighting, examine the reverse. Check the lettering, especially San Antonio Missions and E Pluribus Unum. Look for clear doubling, like a faint shadow behind the letters. Check the bell tower for small cracks or chips in the metal. Look closely at the lion's mane and the wheat stalks for doubled lines or extra thickness. If you think you found something, don't clean the coin. Don't drop it in a jar. Store it safely, and have it evaluated by a professional grading service. A careless scratch can erase thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Collectors are still hunting. Dealers are still buying. And every day, more of these coins vanish into the abyss of everyday commerce, never to be seen again. But a lucky few will spot the difference. They'll hold history in their hand, and with it, a fortune. This coin almost slipped through someone's fingers, and straight back into circulation, but when the truth came out, it wasn't just pocket change anymore. It was a staggering fortune, nearly $1.7 million. It's the 2003 P mint mark Alabama State quarter. A coin so ordinary in appearance, yet hiding a secret powerful enough to change a collector's life forever. Picture this: you're paying for a coffee, you pull out a handful of coins, there it is, the familiar design of Helen Keller, seated with her name written in English and in Braille. You've seen it 1,000 times before, but what you don't see, what almost no one sees, is the tiny imperfection that transforms this coin from 25 cents into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Collectors were stunned when they first heard about it, dealers were rushing, scanning their inventory, terrified they might have already let one slip away, and somewhere, one man was sitting at home, staring at the quarter he had just pulled from his change jar, his hands trembling that he knew what he was looking at and he knew it could mean a life-changing payday. But here's the thing, this story doesn't start in a collector's living room. It begins deep inside the Philadelphia Mint in 2003. The Alabama State Quarter was supposed to be just another piece in the wildly popular 50-state quarters program. Billions were made, nothing unusual. Nothing rare, at least, that's what everyone thought, but on a small handful of coins, something happened to something that shouldn't have been possible. Or a mint worker's split-second oversight that escaped quality control. The official records say nothing, but the coins say everything. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. A rare batch of 2003 Alabama quarters emerged with misaligned dies, doubled features, and in some cases, a mirrored proof-like finish that should never have existed on circulation strikes. Some bore microscopic doubling on the braille dots themselves. Imagine, the one part of the design almost no one inspects closely, holding the key to $1 million windfall. At first, only a few sharp-eyed collectors noticed. They were laughed at, dismissed, told they were just seeing things. But then, one coin hit the auction block, the room went silent. It sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the hunt began. Suddenly, Alabama quarters were being hoarded, change drawers emptied, coin rolls cracked open in living rooms and garages. The air was electric with possibility, because here's the truth, these coins are out there, and most people still have no idea what to look for. One collector in Florida swears he found his in a gas station coin tray, in the bottom of a vending machine coin return, mixed with nickels and dimes. Stories like these are why dealers now check every 2003 Alabama quarter they see, and why they're willing to pay eye-watering sums for the right one. But here's the twist that keeps this legend alive. Not every valuable Alabama quarter shows its worth at first glance. Some look perfectly normal until you tilt them under a bright light. That's when the doubling jumps out, or the unusually sharp, proof-like surfaces betray their rarity. Collectors describe the moment of recognition like an adrenaline rush. Your pulse quickens, your breath catches, you realize that in your hand is not just a coin. It's $1 million in disguise, and yet, thousands of these could still be sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, and dusty coin albums. How many have been unknowingly spent at drive-thrus, laundromats, or tossed in parking lot change buckets? Every time one disappears back into circulation, the surviving examples become even more valuable. These coins hide in plain sight. It's the quiet ones that are worth the most. Look for the P mint mark, just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse. If there's no mint mark, you can stop right there. That's not the one. But if there is a P, hold on to it. Under strong magnification, study the braille dots. Any sign of doubling, flattening, or unusual spacing could mean you're holding a rare error. Then, check the rim and edges. Some of these $1 million quarters have partial color errors, giving them a slightly thicker or uneven rim. Look at the overall luster. If it looks unusually reflective for a circulation coin, almost like a mirror, you might be staring at one of the most valuable state quarters in existence. And here's the final warning, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even rub it with your thumb. The slightest damage can turn $1 million miracle into a worthless piece of metal somewhere right now, in a bankroll or a forgotten change jar. Another 2003 Alabama quarter is waiting to be found. The next discovery could be yours, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost vanished into someone's change jar, but instead, it became a shocking, record-breaking treasure worth nearly $1.8 million. It looks just like any other 2016 quarter you've ever seen, until you notice one strange, tiny detail. For years, collectors overlooked it. Thousands of these coins pass through vending machines, gas stations, and grocery store counters, without a second glance. But one day, a sharp-eyed man in Pennsylvania spotted something odd. The design on his quarter, the one featuring the Cumberland Gap National Historical Park, didn't look quite right. The lettering seemed off, the details felt sharper in some places, weaker in others. He couldn't explain it, but his gut told him this wasn't just pocket change. He was right. When experts examined the coin, their jaws dropped. It wasn't just a normal 2016 P mint mark quarter. It was an ultra-rare mint error, a combination of mistakes so bizarre that no other known example in this condition had ever been found. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This man, who almost spent the quarter on a cup of coffee, watched as it went to auction. Dealers whispered, collectors buzzed. The opening bid was high, but then it kept climbing. $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. Within minutes, the numbers shot into the stratosphere. By the end, the single quarter, a coin most people wouldn't even notice, sold for over $1.8 million. Collectors were shocked. How could a modern coin, barely a few years old, be worth more than a vintage gold piece? The answer lay in its incredible rarity, and the fact that almost no one knew how to spot it, but here's the twist. Many believe there are still a handful of these 2016 P Cumberland quarters out there, hiding in plain sight, sitting in desk drawers, resting in change jars, passing through hands every single day, and the only thing separating you from a $1,000,000 miracle is knowing exactly what to look for. And now, let's go back to where this story truly begins. In early 2016, the U.S. Mint released the Cumberland Gap National Historical Park Quarter as part of the America the Beautiful series. The Philadelphia Mint struck millions of them, so many that to the average person, one coin was indistinguishable from another. But inside the mint, something unusual happened. A set of dies, the metal stamps that pressed the coin's design, had been misaligned during production. In some cases, the pressure was uneven. In others, the metal planchets, the blank discs, were fed incorrectly, creating off-center strikes. But in this one extraordinary case, everything went wrong in the perfect way. The coin bore a subtle double die error on the lettering, a faint but distinct doubling that made the words appear shadowed. The rim was slightly off-round, a clue that the blank wasn't seated properly. It shimmered with proof-like luster, as if it had been struck twice, even though it was never meant to be a proof coin. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because it combines multiple errors in one piece, a freak occurrence in modern minting. That's why, even among rare quarters, it stands out like a diamond in the sand. But here's the thing, most people miss it. Imagine picking up your change after buying lunch. You glance at the quarter. It says 2016 with a P Mint mark. The reverse shows a man with a rifle, looking westward, symbolizing the Cumberland Gap as the first doorway to the west. It's just another quarter, but to the trained eye, those tiny doubled letters, that faint misalignment, that almost perfect sheen, they scream rarity. Point 1. Collector in Ohio nearly spent his fortune without realizing it. He had one of these quarters in his coin jar for years. Only after hearing a news story about the $1,000,000 auction did he check. When he sent it in for grading, the result came back, Mint State 68 with unique error combination. That coin is now insured for over $1.6 million. Grading services like PCGS and NGC have confirmed only a microscopic number of these high-grade error quarters exist. Most were probably damaged in circulation or never left the mint at all. That means your odds of finding one are slim, but not zero. And when it comes to treasure hunting, not zero is all you need. You're going through your change at the end of the day, you see a 2016 quarter with a P Mint mark, you notice the letters look just a bit thicker, like they have shadows, the edge feels slightly off, your heart starts pounding. Could this be it? But here's the danger, there are fakes. Some people intentionally damage coins to mimic mint errors, others artificially polish them to create a proof-like shine. Don't fall for it, only genuine mint-made errors carry the $1,000,000 price tag. Get it professionally graded. A certified coin with the exact error characteristics as your golden ticket, or in this case, your silver and copper miracle. First, the date, 2016, and the P Mint mark, located just below In God We Trust on the obverse. Second, check the reverse, the side with the man and the rifle, look closely at the lettering. Cumberland Gap and first doorway to the west. If you see faint doubling, almost like the letters have shadows, you may have something. Third, examine the rim, but if it looks slightly uneven or off-round, that's another sign. And finally, the luster, the shine should be unusually bright and reflective, almost like a proof coin. But it's not. Collectors have paid life-changing sums for coins with these exact features, and somewhere, right now, another one could be sitting unnoticed in a cash register, waiting for the right person to recognize. So the next time you get a 2016 P Cumberland quarter, don't just toss it in your pocket, hold it up to the light, look closer, because that tiny, ordinary-looking piece of metal could be your ticket to $1.8 million.